Hello, hello. Hopefully you've all got me. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Give me a little thumbs up. Yes, we are good to go. I'm just going to close that down so I don't have any errors. Yay! Welcome to my kitchen. This is our Get Your French On class, and it was completely inspired by the fact that we have a new Canele tin coming to the mix shop soon. I hope I've said that correctly. Our resident Frenchie is actually in France as we speak, so she's not here to correct me. But we have all been baking up a storm, and the gorgeous Mandy has been testing all different flavors. So if you don't know what that Canele is, you're in for a real treat. And then it just made us look at cookie dough and other French recipes. And we just thought, isn't it exciting when you start looking at something you don't normally look at, you discover all these amazing recipes, and you can then get more creative and get more exciting in the kitchen. So that was how tonight's theme came about. That's my machine. There's something in there that I'm going to show you later. So what we'll do is we're here to cook tonight in the TM6. Now, in about 10 days, the price of the TM6 will be going up $220. So we wanted to give everybody who's thinking about getting one an opportunity to get in before the price rise. So as we know, everything's gone up now. You know, I pay $6 for rice I used to pay $4 for, and all of that I don't need to go on. You're all experiencing it, so you know it's out there. So it is just in line with inflation and what's happening in the world. But obviously, if it's something you've been thinking about getting on your bench, why spend more than you need to spend? So we all know that Thermomix is going to save us time, save us money, help us eat healthier, help us make nice treats. There's lots of benefits, and you're going to hear about those tonight. But before I go on, I'm just going to introduce, I know there's a few people on here tonight who don't have a TM6 yet. So I'm going to flick my camera around and introduce you. Double trouble we have here. So one of the benefits of being a consultant is that you can earn yourself an additional Thermomixes, and I say that plural because I've also got a sparkly black sitting in a box in my hallway that just arrived a couple of days ago that I haven't unpacked yet. So very exciting. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to just zoom in on the screen here so you can see. Now, the people who are on here tonight who are either TM31 or TM5 owners, the language is the same. So it makes it really easy to transition from a previous model Thermomix to the newest Thermomix. So what we have here is time, temperature, and speed. Now, if you're a non-owner, the beauty of this is that it's a fully interactive touchscreen and fully connected with Wi-Fi as well. So if you can use your smartphone, you can use a Thermomix. We've got multiple screens where you can scroll through different modes, and we can talk about those a little bit more later. Or we can scroll the other way into our Cookie Dough platform. And if you've not heard of Cookie Dough before, it's like a Netflix for recipes. So you can scroll through, look at literally thousands of recipes, add them to weekly planners, and decide what you want to cook. So I'm going to quickly pick off my dish because I'm doing a gratin dauphinoise, and it just needs to go in the Thermomix for 10 minutes and then the oven for 25. So this is a really great side dish to any meal. And who doesn't love potatoes? And I'm going to be a little bit cheeky. I did slice them in my cutter. So the only way to get one of those is as a Thermomix consultant. We have sold out worldwide. We're waiting for more to be produced, but we have kept a limited amount of stock for people who join the business because we do want consultants to have one. So if you do want to know more about that, please reach out to me or whoever invited you tonight. All right, so here we go. Now that I've just bragged about my cutter, so I'm going to go into my week and pull up my recipe. So I'm actually going to do this one here. I pulled up two recipes that were same, but different, and then realized I'd prepped for different ingredients. So here we go. So once you go into your recipe, you've got all your ingredients down the left-hand side there and your preparation on the right. And when you want to go start cooking, when you're ready to start cooking, you just press start cooking. But I've already grated my cheese, so I'm actually going to skip that step, which means I can just jump straight forward to step number 3, which is adding the garlic cloves. So lid off, 1 garlic clove, in it goes. Now, if you do like garlic, you can put in more. If you don't like garlic, you can leave it out completely. This is where you're completely in control. And this has preset 3 seconds for me to speed 7. So I'm just going to turn straight around to speed 7. Now, for anyone who's new to Thermomix, the first time I saw this, I was really wowed because no other appliance can do that to a garlic clove like that. If you put it in a food processor, you'll find it'll sort of knock it around a bit like a pinball machine. So the beauty of the Thermomix is that the angle of the blades and the different shapes in the bowl allow you to chop the finest of things. Now it's just asking me to scrape down the sides. So all I'm doing is just pushing that garlic to the base of the bowl, okay? All righty, so my next step here is to add my potatoes. Now I actually have made this dish before and it was before the cutter and I just sliced them by hand. So if you don't have a cutter, it doesn't mean you can't do this dish. But if I can just sort of show you how beautifully they're sliced. I must admit the cutter did do it a lot more even than I did it. But you know what? Still tastes great. So here we go. I'm going to pop that aside. And then the next ingredient is just some cream, 250 grams of cream. Now, for those who aren't aware, the Thermomix TM6 has scales that weigh in 1 gram increments. So I can watch that count up as I'm pouring it in. Now, again, it's a guide. It's a guided recipe, which means you're in control. If you want a bit more or less of something, particularly with savoury dishes, they're very forgiving. You can do that. If it's baking, you obviously need to be a little bit more specific, which is where the 1 gram increment comes into play. And then a teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to get my grinder out here and grind away. Again, if you like salt, you can put in a bit of extra. If you don't, you can leave it out. So you're in control. I do like my salt, so bring it in. And then pepper, I'm going to do the same. In that goes. There we go. Now, the thing I love about this dish is that, now it says nutmeg. I'm not adding the nutmeg because it's just not something that I want to have in my potatoes. And then it just says simmering basket on the top, 10 minutes, 100 degrees, reverse, and speed 1. So that's a great dish. You can get that on, run out the door, pick up the kids from footy or dancing, which is what I've been doing tonight, dance run. And then it'll just, when it's finished, goes in the oven. So I'm going to stop talking now and go to Irene. I know I'm talking fast. I'll tell you why, because Irene's got an amazing dish that's got to go in the oven and we want it to be cooked so you guys can see it at the end. All right. So you'll be back with me soon. Thanks, Irene. Over to you, darling.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I am making, I don't even know how to pronounce the second part of that. So I'm just going to call it a mushroom pie. So one of our French participants might be able to give the right term to that. But essentially, it is a mushroom pie. I have pre-made some of this, but I'll walk through the entire recipe just for the sake of trying to get this done today as quickly as possible. So the first thing we're going to do is a rough puff pastry. I'm going to turn on comments and someone can read them out, hopefully. Has anyone tried to make a rough puff?
Guess what, Irene?
None? Yes.
Yolaine has just joined us. She's obviously zooming in from France. So now she will be able to help us with our pronunciation. Hi, Yolaine.
So, Yolaine, what's the correct pronunciation?
Her audio may not have connected yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, just let her in.
Sorry. What was it that you're trying to pronounce?
The mushroom.
Croustade.
Croustade. There you go.
There you go.
Croustade is something. And
right.
this is French, actually.
It sounds fancier than pie.
It does, yeah. Well, pie's pretty good. Okay, so a few things you need to do to make a rough puff pastry, for those that haven't done one before, is you want all of your ingredients to be cold. I've actually had my flour, salt, butter in the freezer to keep them as cold as possible. When you normally do a puff pastry, you know, it's the pastry and then you're doing layers and you're laminating and completely folding in order to get those multiple layers. We're not doing that here. With a rough puff pastry, what we want to do is have layers of butter that's unmelted in between that flour. So as we roll it out, it helps to separate to create, I guess, what is mimicking a puff pastry. That's probably the easiest way for me to explain it. So in with all my little cubes of butter. They are rock hard. I love this little mini tray. This is off the mix shop. So cute. It's into my freezer. Okay, next. We've got 200 grams of plain flour. And in there, I've also got the salt, which will come up in my recipe shortly. to that chilled water. So I've just got some ice in here, and I'm just going to pour a little bit of that in without getting it all over the bench top. Next, my salt, which is already in there, lid on. And this literally is 20 seconds on speed 6. You can actually hear it right in those last 3-4 seconds that it's come together. And it needs to look like that. You don't want it to be too tight. And this is perfect. And this would go straight out onto a Thermomat, which I've got in the fridge at the moment, but I'll do it on another mat I've got here at the moment. And this freezes really well. So once you've got it done, you can then roll it out into sheets and it's ready to go, just like you would with puff pastry. You think I could get this bag open? Ooh. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to move this down slightly. Like I said, I've got the other mash in the fridge, but we'll just use, these are a reusable fondant mats, but I use them for pastry. So pop your bowl out, twist the bottom part of the blade. That'll help release all your dough, so there's nothing left inside. If you've got anything stuck, definitely use a spatula a little bit at that, so we're not wasting it. And then you're just pushing it down together into kind of a square. And you're going to do this in your Thermomat, which I'll show you once we're ready to cover the pie. Cover that exactly like you would with your Thermomat, and that goes into the fridge to chill. Don't worry about bringing it together. It'll happen when we roll it out. So I'm going to pop that in the fridge. And like Michelle, the beauty of being a consultant is to have another bowl ready to go. So once you finish obviously doing the pastry, you then need to get ready to do your mushroom. Don't worry about that. It's actually asking us to prepare the pastry, but I've already done that. So moving through that recipe, a few more steps. Preheat the oven. I've just turned it on earlier. You're going to grease a pie dish, which is roughly 25 centimeters. Now we're going to the next step. So 4 cloves of garlic. We're going to chop those. 3 seconds, speed 7. Never get bored of that. I think Michelle was saying that earlier too. One less thing I have to do, which is great. We're scraping down the side of the bowl. And then I'm just going to saute that onion for 3 minutes with a splash of olive oil. Without the measuring cup on, we're going to saute that for 3 minutes. Back to you guys.
Well, hello. So what I've got happening here is in the Thermomix that you heard chiming before, we get asked a lot about the functions and the modes of the TM6. And one of the modes is a slow cook. And when we do demos for people, because excitedly now, after 2 years of not being able to do demos, we're back in homes and doing demos and we love it. People go, we want to learn about slow cook. We're like, well, slow cook isn't really conducive to a quick demo because, you know, they range anywhere from sort of an hour and a half through to 8 hours. So what I actually did, I'm sort of doing things in a reverse a little bit, in that I've made a chicken chasseur, which in English language is a hunter stew. So, but again, it just sounds so much nicer in French, doesn't it? Did I pronounce it correctly, Elaine? Chasseur? She might have dropped off, I'm not sure. Anyway, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. So it actually cooks for 90 minutes. So I've actually cooked that. And then what I'm going to do, because it's actually with the 90 minutes, the 90 minutes of cooking, it was ready. And then the last step is just to add in a bit of corn flour and water that you put together at the start. So I'm just sort of making that into a bit of a paste and then pour it in and cook it for 3 minutes. So as a bit of a spoiler alert, I'm going to show you what it looks like so far. In fact, I'm going to lift the camera rather than pour this onto, the keyboard. When we first started doing Zoom stuff, our laptops got soups and all sorts of things poured on them. And the next part of the recipe is just to add this in and let it cook for 3 minutes. So I am going to do that. The corn flour sticks a little bit, so you want to just stir it and then before you add it in. And then I'm just going to put that on for 3 minutes, and that will be ready to show you when that's done there. And in about 30 seconds, unless, so now I'm in the wrong spot because I went to make my mixture. Recipe details. So again, because I jumped back to make my mixture. So I've done my 90 minutes cook. And so stir in the reserve corn flour mixture, add it in, and then place the simmering basket on top instead of that. And now it's just a 3-minute cook, which is actually perfect timing because my potatoes are ready. So, and when I say ready, they're ready to go in the oven. So that's what they look like after 10 minutes of cooking. So the beauty of doing that 10 minutes in the Thermomix first, it's like you just steam or parboil a roast potato. Now it only needs 25 minutes in the oven. So I'm going to tip that camera down so you can actually just see that being added into my dish here. I sort of had one dish that was too big and one dish that was too small. So I went with the one that was too big. So I figure it'll cook a bit quicker if it's spread thinner. So I'm just going to spread that out and then sprinkle it with the cheese that I'd grated earlier and pop it in the oven. So should we go back to you, Irene?
Thank you. That'll be great.
Lovely. Find you. There you are.
Thank you. Okay, so the garlic and onion, the garlic has been sauteed. It asks you to take that out of the bowl to then steam your mushrooms. So essentially, you're going to use your Varoma dish and it will fill it. So it's about 750 grams of mushrooms will fill up in here. So you take your garlic out, pop it aside, pop 300 mils of water in or 300 grams of water in, and then pop your mushrooms on top to steam literally for 10 minutes with whatever herbs you like to use, just to essentially wilt them down so they semi-cook, and it makes it a little bit easier for them to sit in your pie dish. So we're not going to do that because I've obviously done that just to help speed up the process. But once you do finish sauteing them, pop them into something to drain. You want to get rid of all of that liquid. You don't want a wet, soggy pastry or a wet pie. So once we've finished with the mushrooms, so again, we'll move past that part. Okay, so now it's asking me to prepare and line my pie dish. I'm not putting pastry on the bottom of mine. I'm just going to put it at the top, again, just to make it a little bit simpler. Then it's asking me to pop in the other ingredients that would go back in with the garlic. So we're talking about a pinch of salt. So we'll do that. It's asking for some ground pepper. And next, 4 eggs. So they're just whole eggs. I haven't whisked them at all. They're just going straight in. A little bit of plain flour. So 20 grams. More. And this is to help give you that gravy consistency that you get from a lovely pie. I should have measured this, but anyway, 19 grams, close enough. Okay, 100 grams of thickened cream. I think we're both using thickened cream tonight, Michelle.
I think that's a kind of wintry ingredient. Plus, it's all very French.
Very, very French. Love their butter. Okay, the sauteed garlic, which is obviously already in there. Measuring cup on. This is going to mix for 2 minutes at 80 degrees. You guys want to, or I can roll out my pastry, maybe. Let's do that while that's.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Roll out the pastry. And then the other thing we'll do when we've got a little, you know, something sauteing or mixing or whatever is show some people the modes, because I know there were a few people asking about the modes tonight.
Okay, so when I made this first batch earlier tonight, my mum likes to run the house really, really hot. It feels like it's 3,000 degrees in here at the moment. So this wasn't cold enough. So you'll see it's quite sticky, but it's hopefully it's had long enough in the fridge for it to firm up. And you can see I've put a fair bit of extra flour on top. You won't need to do that with yours. So just push it down gently. Just going to move this out of the way. And I'm going to take it off here. So for those that have got a Thermomix, you can get yourself a Thermomat. It is great for rolling out pastry as a host reward. And if you've got one of those Joseph pins that have got the guides, you'll get a nice even consistency. It's not too bad, actually. It's firmed up pretty well, so I'm not too unhappy about that. Now, ideally, you would have thought about this before doing it like I've just done it. You would have cut out your disc for your pie before putting all your mushrooms in there. But that's okay. We've got another dish. I'm just using the back of my knife. You don't want to cut on your Thermomat. Okay, I'm just going to pull away that excess and my crust is ready to go. I'm literally just going to mix this with the other batch that I've got in the fridge. And when I roll that out, it's created an air pocket. Okay. All right, so from there, we're transferring the mushrooms into here, which we've done. Then it's asking me to place, no. I feel like I've missed a step. In the actual description, it says transfer the reserve drain mushrooms and oh, sorry, I didn't read that properly. It says transfer the mushrooms in and then pour over this mixture. So sorry, I rushed that. So that's my egg flour combo. Now that's going to go over here. And I'm just going to mix that through slightly. I was worried that this might be too small, but it's actually, yeah, so it's the right size. So I did have a bigger container for it, but this is actually really good. So the size is great. Now we grab the pastry. And this is where the mat does come in handy. So you can lift it with the mat over the top of the dish. And I probably should have used a little bit more flour. Just going to drag it over slightly. To peel away. Not too bad. And I'm going to do a bit of an Aussie thing and pinch it slightly. Just so it stays on top. I don't cut that excess away. Pastry can shrink a little bit in the oven anyway. So, and I've cut it pretty thin. And last but not least, make sure you poke a hole through the middle. So you've got for that to escape. I'm just going to literally brush that with a little bit of milk and pop it in the oven for half an hour.
Perfect. I love the fact that you've left those extra bits on, because they're those crunchy bits. When you pull it out of the oven, you can just tear off and have a little.
The yummy bits. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly, Irene. I love it. Oh, that's awesome. All righty. Well, back to me. Well, actually, you know what we might do, Mandy? Do you want to do your bit, or I can do my bit first?
I don't mind.
All right, I tell you what, actually, I will do part of my bit because there's another little bit of cooking. So the chicken chasseur, the slow cook, is actually ready. But what I want to do is just show you how easy that was to put on, because this is something that looks really gourmet, but we've had it since I discovered this recipe a few weeks ago. I think we've had it 3 or 4 times. So the fact that I'm making 2 batches of it tonight, one of my lucky friends is going to get one tomorrow. But it's just one that I can put on and it cooks. It's really quick to put on and it cooks while I'm running around, you know, doing all the driving duties and all those other things you need to do. So here we go. So I'll just bring you back to the recipe. So it's in my recently cooked because it gets cooked so often. So, and actually the other place I had it is in my daily planner. So for those of you, whether you're familiar with Cookie Do, in your daily planner, you can set things up for your week of what you want to cook. Now, the first thing it does is get me to get the little corn flour mixture ready, but I did that in advance. So garlic clove, I just realized I used my garlic clove in the other thing. So I'm going to skip straight past that and go straight to my onion. So there's my onion here. Oh, back here, 30 grams of olive oil. Here we go. Hang on, that was wine. Let's not get those two confused. I promise I haven't had one. So 30 grams of olive oil. So the beauty of the 1 gram scales is that these slow ones work really well. If you're a TM5 owner, you might know that these they don't work very well with the slow pour. Now it actually says to use echallots, which I didn't have, so I just used an onion, and it just says to cut that in half. But because I've used an onion, I've cut mine into sort of wedges. So that's going to go in there like that. And then the next ingredient is my mushrooms. So I've used, it says button mushrooms. I had Swiss brown ones in the fridge, so they're going to go in there like that. Beautiful. And some thyme. So I've got lots of time, but no time. Yep, that's my dad joke for the evening. So here we go. So, and it just says a few sprigs. So again, things like this. To be honest, the first few times I made this recipe, I only had parsley, so that's what I put in. But today I actually thought I'd treat myself to the thyme because it just smelled so beautiful when I was shopping. So there we go. So in goes the thyme and on goes the lid. Splash guard, safety first. I'm going to grab that. Instead of the measuring cup, on goes the splash guard. Done. And now those delicious things are just going to cook for 10 minutes. So you're going to sort of saute and caramelize the mushroom and the onion as my base and the thyme as my base for that recipe. All righty, so now we might go over to Mandy because she's going to treat us with what she's got going on there, and then I'll show you how easy the next step it is, because now there's just one more step and then it slow cooks. So it's super easy, highly recommend it. All right, Mandy, are you ready to, because you're going to be the one that wows everybody. They're all going to want to come to your house when they see those cannolis. Let me find you.
I can do it if you like.
No, I've got you. There you are.
Okay,
Beautiful.
yeah, cool.
Hi, Mandy.
So, hi.
Bonjour.
Welcome to my kitchen. We did a French class during lockdown, and this was the only beret I could actually get. It's my best French attempt. So what I'm making, as Michelle alluded to at the beginning of the class, we have a new recipe called a canele, and I have just Googled where it came from, and it is obviously a French thing. The name canele comes from the French word for fluted. According to cookbooks, the canele bordelaise could date back to anywhere between the 15th and 18th centuries, and it was originated from the Bordeaux region. The winemakers used egg whites to clarify wine and would give the excess egg yolks to nuns to make food for poor children. So that was where it all sort of started. And we came across them last month when we went to Michelle's for our team meeting, and she made some there. And we had a look at her canele tin, and I know Elaine borrowed it, and then I've had it ever since. And I've been trying all sorts of different flavors. So the other thing we learned from Elaine, she had a slightly different recipe. It's not on Cookie Do yet, as far as I'm aware, but I can certainly copy what I've done and send it out to you guys. So in the Thermomix recipe, it had a couple of egg yolks. So you're left with the egg whites, and that's fine if you want to make meringues or you've got something else you want to do, you add them in your omelette, all that sort of stuff. But I know in my house, I'd probably put them in a small container, I'd put them in the fridge, or I'd put them in the freezer, and then I'd come back to them sometime later. So, you know, not wanting to have that, you know, trying to be as zero waste as possible, I don't want that to happen. So Elaine's recipe, you just had 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs. And for me, that makes much more sense. So that's what I've done. She also told us about, there's a shop in Melbourne called Canele Alain. So I went onto the website on that very night when we first came across them and looked at all the different flavors they made. So what I've been playing with then since is the different flavors. And traditionally they're a sort of vanilla with, I can't remember what it is. It's not rum, but it's brandy or something like that in them.
No, it's
But
rum.
It is rum. Oh, it is rum.
I use brandy, but Elaine said, no, you've got to use rum.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right. Well, I haven't used rum in mine. Okay. So what I've been playing with over the last few weeks is orange and Cointreau, which is the winner. I've also done pandan coconut, and that was a very close second. I've done lemon and limoncello because we had lots of limoncello, and I thought might use up a bit of it, but you know, only need a tiny bit. And then chocolate. So what I'm making tonight is the orange and Cointreau ones, but I'm going to show you a couple of the others that I have made already. Okay. So, and the other thing with this is because there isn't a recipe particularly on Cookie Do, I did find one actually. I have put into creative recipes, so I thought that might also be something interesting for you to have a look at. So here we go. We have, I hope you can see that all right. Orange and Cointreau canele. So this is a creative recipe. I have put it in there, and the way you do that is on your computer. All right, and then it comes up in here. So that's one of my little caneles there. And I'm just going to go start cooking. Wake up, she says, hopefully. Oh, have a look down. Ah, it's frozen on me. That'd be right. Let's go back. Here we go. It's just waking up. I think it's been sitting there. I've been waiting for my turn. Okay, so come on. Yeah, start cooking. So enjoy cooking your own recipe. Then it says prepare the batter 2 days before. So that's a really great thing. If you want to do these for a dinner party, and I have done that already, then, you know, it's something you make, just the batter sits in the fridge for up to 2 days. Having said that, I haven't left it in the fridge for 2 days because I haven't been organised enough to do that. But it is the batter that I've made for the chocolate ones I'm going to show you in a minute. I made about this time last night, and I cooked some of them this morning. So you can get away with it a bit less. All right. Now, in the guide, in the creative recipes, you've got 2 little symbols down the bottom, and one is scales and one is sort of like the function of the Thermomix that you're using. So what I'm going to do, it says add the rind of 1 orange and 250 grams of caster sugar. So I've got my scales in here. Obviously got to tear them, I've taken that off. And this is a really cool thing. So if you're making a cake or anything that needs lemon zest and sugar or orange, put them in together because it actually works a lot better when they're in together. So I'm putting all that in. And I noticed I've made a mistake in this. So I put caster sugar. I put raw sugar because I'm actually going to make caster sugar. But that's all right. I can go and correct that on the computer and it will change in here. So now I'm going to hit the little cross at the top. I'm going to hit the little function one, and there we are, 10 seconds, speed 10.
So how amazing that you only need to have one type of sugar in your pantry, which is both space saving and cost saving, because the Thermomix can create that function for you. So anything you buy that's had a process done to it, now that you have the tool of the Thermomix, it can create that process.
You would not believe how good this smells. It's just incredible. And what I actually did, we've got neighbours over the road who have an orange tree. And I was picking some yesterday, and I'll tell you what, they are the best oranges I've ever had. They are really delicious. So I'm taking that out and putting it back into a container. Wait a minute. But it doesn't actually matter there's any left in there because it's all going to be added back in at the end. So it's a beautiful orange colour. It smells incredible. Okay. I'm on my bench as well. Okay. The arrow. And it gives us the next thing. So again, I get my scales up there. I've got 500 grams of milk. Oh, did. So the other day when I was doing this, I only had 360 grams of milk. I actually topped it up with water and it worked perfectly. And then I want to turn my scales. I've got 50 grams of salted butter. So there it is, just going in. Into the function down here. 3 minutes, 80 degrees, speed 1. Okay, so whilst that's happening, I'm just going to grab the tray.
So for those who are unfamiliar with Cookie Doo's got the worldwide recipe platform, but what you are now able to do is put in your own recipes. So that's what Mandy's done with that Canele recipe where she says created recipes. Oh, there's the tin.
There's the tin, all right. And obviously that's the other side. Now, what's really important with this, I just see my butter's still, soft enough, is when you're going to bake them, you need to do 2 layers of butter in your tin. I've done one already. I've just got to work out which ones I've greased that end, because I've used some of the mixture earlier today, of the one that's been sitting in the fridge to make some so I could show you. And this is just the second layer of greasing of the tin. So it's melted butter, and you're just literally going to pop it in here. So I've done 1 layer and had it in the fridge longer than 5 minutes, but that's basically the idea. The other day, I was doing them first thing in the morning. It was so cold outside, I just stuck the tin outside. It was perfect. So you do this, and then it's going to go back in the fridge again for another 5 minutes, and they pop out so easily. It's really fantastic. You won't see them doing that because they take an hour to cook, or just under. And you have the first 10 minutes is 230 degrees, and after that it goes down to 170 degrees for 45 minutes. And the really cool thing, I don't know if you've found this yet, is I'm going to put these back in the fridge in just a sec, but is the timer on the Thermomix. I'll show you on the Thermomix screen. I'll show you that in just a sec.
I wonder if, for you baking experts out there, I'm looking at that going, I want to butter every tin, like muffin, everything I do in a tin now. I want to do that double butter layer.
Yeah, except if you've got silicone, then you don't have to worry about anything. So if you haven't found it yet, on the TM6, in the middle of the screen, there's actually a little drop-down thing here. There we go, and it is a timer. So, oh, there we go. So when it comes to actually putting my chocolate ones in the oven, which I will do in a minute, I can just set the time on here. And the fantastic thing is it just works in the background. So you can be, you know, cooking something else, and that's just in the background, and it just gives you the reminder that it's finished. All right, we'll just keep going with this recipe. It does say to let it stand for a few minutes, but I haven't ever done that either. So let's go. So it's just delicious Cointreau. Haven't used Cointreau for ages, but I can see I'm getting low here. And then 100 grams of plain flour, and this is gluten-free. Two eggs. Yeah. And that the sugar and the zest goes back in. Okay. And 20 seconds before. And I'm just going to pour it in away from my computer so you can see what it looks like. It just looks a bit like a custard. It's a very runny looking custard, very liquidy. But over the couple of days in the fridge, or 24 hours or whatever it is that you do, it actually thickens up a bit. And I'll show you, I've got my chocolate one out here somewhere. So that's just going to go into the fridge for 24 hours. We've actually got someone coming for dinner on Sunday night, so that's dessert organised. That's that one. And I'll just grab my tin and show you. This is the chocolate one, and I'll show you in here. So another little tip we got from Elaine. So in the recipe, it says the Thermomix recipe, it says to put the mixture back into your Thermomix bowl and mix it around. But you're just going to mix it around, then you're going to pour it out again. And to me, that's, you know, why bother? And she suggested you just use a fork. So it tends to settle a little bit on the bottom, and just mix that in a bit. I'll grab the tin and we'll just fill them up. So when it's really full, I've been using a ladle, but I reckon I could probably do a bit of a pour here.
Good steady hand there, Mandy.
Oh, I know. It's only because there's not too much in there, which is good. It says to leave a bit of a gap, but, you know, I mean, I haven't got quite enough for another one, so I'll just sort of fill them up.
You could just drink that mixture anyway, couldn't you? It's just
Well,
like,
I probably could, because the chocolate one's got Kahlua in it.
oh, yummy.
Just a bit of, you know, playing around, experimenting. So that will go in the, I'm going to put that in the oven in just a moment. But just before you leave me, I'm going to show you a couple that are cooked, and I've actually cut them open so you can see. So these are what they look like. That's a chocolate one, obviously. It's not just full on burnt, it's chocolate. And inside, it's like that. All right. Now, I know when we were talking with Elaine at the time, she said that it should be drier than that. But you know what? I quite like the custardy texture. So it's totally up to you what you do. And it was Michelle said, there's a recipe, but you make it as you like it. And we're really happy with having them a little bit custardy in there. So that's the chocolate one. The Cointreau one, obviously, I can't show you because it's going to be, the mix is going to be in the fridge. But what I am going to show you, and this is really quite leery, but really delicious, that's the pandan and coconut milk. So the coconut, I used coconut milk, a tin of coconut milk, made it up to 500 mils with water, followed basically the rest of that recipe, but had a little bit of the pandan paste, which I got from an Asian shop. It's about a teaspoon, and that's what they come out like, and they're really, really delicious. So they are dairy-free and gluten-free. All right, so you've got plenty of options, plenty of different flavors to experiment and try. I'm sure there's plenty of other liqueurs that I haven't even thought about, but I've got my top two.
That's fantastic. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned about the gluten-free, because the original flour recipe just does have normal flour, and Mandy's gluten-free at home. And we sort of said, well, she was going to test that out so we could share with everybody if that worked, and it works beautifully, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Yummy.
Wow.
All right.
Well, I'm actually going to be in your area tomorrow, Mandy. I might have to swing past for your taste test. Leave one on the
You're
little.
welcome.
Love it. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Righty, where am I? Irene, is yours still in the oven there? Because I'm going to just show the next step of my recipe. So the 10 minutes of the onion and mushroom sauteing is finished, and a bit like Mandy said when we talk about the smells. So that's what that looks like. So imagine that if that was in a pan for 10 minutes, I would have had to stand there for that 10 minutes stirring that. So just set and forget. So I love it. I now say it replicates and replaces me. So the next step, and this is how simple this is. So the next is the wine. So it's 100 grams of wine. So I'm just going to pour that in, counting up with the scales. I haven't pre-weighed any of that there. A bit for the pot and a bit for me, I think. And then the next ingredient, now it's going to stir for 2 minutes with the wine. So that wine's just going to go through and marry in those flavors. So while that's doing that, I'm going to jump over to my oven machine because this one's actually ready. So I'm going to pour this into my thermo server. Now, again, I'm going to tilt the camera down so you guys can have a look here. And this is actually just thickened up beautifully with the fact that it's got the, so you can see here, just that beautiful casserole. Now, the thing that I love about this is it's really flavoursome, but there's no spice to it. So if you're cooking for little kids as well, or, because a lot of recipes now, there's a lot of sort of chili and spice and things, and it just doesn't suit sort of little palates. I think this is a dish that you could serve, a 2-year-old and they would still love it. We've served it with mashed potato and we've served it with rice, but I love it particularly with the silky sweet potato mash. So if you haven't used that before, jump on and have a look at that recipe because it is delicious. So this is one of the awesome things I love about Zoom classes is now that dinner for tomorrow night is sorted. So I'm going to pop the lid on that. Now, this is a thermo server. So I've popped it in the thermo server. I'm going to put that aside. So if you don't know what a thermo server is, it's an insulated dish that keeps food hot or cold for 2 hours, which means you could make dinner at 4 o'clock, then do all the running around and then, be eating dinner at 6 o'clock and it's still hot. Now, while that's got a few seconds to go there, I'm just going to, on my other screen, I just mentioned before I was going to talk about the modes a little bit. Now, just to give you an idea about how the TM6 has got better and better, when we first got the TM6, there were nine modes on here. But if I scroll down now, there are 17 modes. So the way that you understand how all of those work is, and I'll just use this one here because it's one of my favorites, egg boiler, is that you go into that mode and it will give you instructions on how that mode works. So it says here, 2 to 6 eggs, cold from the fridge in the mixing bowl, and then add water up to the 1 litre mark. So you just carry this straight to the sink, fill it up to 1 litre, and then you pop those instructions away and choose how you like your eggs. Soft, medium, hard or hard. And then it sets a timer and dings when it's ready. And they are perfect every time. So if you're not sure, if you go into a mode and it goes straight in here, you can go in and pull up. There's a little eye in the corner which will pull up your instructions on how to use that mode. But this is where the slow cook is. This is where our blending mode is. We've got all these different modes here. And for those with a cutter, there's the grating and slicing mode. We've got a rice cooker mode. We've got a kettle mode. Here's the slow cook down here. So the beauty of these modes is that you can use them manually. So if you've got a slow cook recipe that you do in a slow cooker and you want to do it in your Thermomix, you can actually just do it in there and turn it on and it'll do it. Or you can search through Cookie-Doo for slow cook recipes and they'll come up. All right, so I've done that 2 minutes with the wine, and the next step is when it all just happened. So the next ingredient is the chicken stock paste. Now, if you haven't got the chicken stock paste in your fridge, you can just use the vegetable one. But I wanted to show you this, and I just wanted to show you how dry it is. If you've made the vegetable stock paste, sometimes when people make the chicken, they think that maybe they've done something wrong. It is a much drier paste, and it's okay, and it still lasts in the fridge for the same amount of time. So I'm just going to pop that in there. That's about 30 grams, that's fine. And then the next ingredient is the tomato paste, so 100 grams of tomato paste. And again, each time I press next, the scales just go to 0, and I can just weigh from there. And then good old seasoning, salt, a bit of pepper. I don't need salt because I've got plenty of salt with the stock paste there. And the chicken. So the other thing I love about this, it's chicken thighs, but you don't have to over prepare them. So I have you're not dicing up your thighs. So I literally just grabbed my thighs and sort of cut them in half. Okay. So again, really, really easy prep. Now that's $8.75 because I bought it it was just under a kilo by the time I cut off some of the fatty bits. So that's fine. That works really well. And 150 grams of water. So I'll just weigh that in. Now you might have noticed that my other one had carrots. Now, when we first did this recipe, it showed it being served, but I went over them. It showed it being served with green beans and mashed potato. And I always love a bit of, extra color and flavor. And one of the other consultants said to me, oh, I added carrots into mine at this stage. And I did that last week when I did it. And it was amazing. So I've got about 200 grams of carrots that I've just sliced up there. So I'm going to pop those in as well. So I always like to cook a recipe first and then, make my own edits. So if you're going to sort of, go rogue, if you're not a confident cook, just follow it to the letter. It'll be delicious every time. But if you're someone who on the stove would, play around and add a few things or leave something out, substitute, be authentic to who you are as a cook, because that works too. Think of your Thermomix like a temperature controlled saucepan. So next it just says stir to combine. So I'm just going to give it a little stir. And then that, my friends, is it. I'm going to pop that on and go next. And it just says here, an hour and a half, 90 degrees, slow cook. I'll pop the lid back in there. And that's it. Now, I'm guessing, I know we're sort of almost at 9 o'clock. My potatoes are almost ready, but I'm guessing Irene's pie or croustade might be ready now too. So, Irene, have you got that ready to show us?
I'm going to show you. It's not quite done, but I'm going to pull it out of the oven. It needs another 5 minutes.
If you need a couple more minutes, I'm
going to show you. This is quite deliberate. The reason I'm showing, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. You can tell if it's undercooked because there's still quite a bit of shine in that middle part. You probably can't see it, but I can see it. We're talking probably another 5 minutes of cooking, but she's puffing up really nicely. So I'm really happy with how it's coming along, but I'm going to pop it back in the oven. It needs probably another 5 minutes, but you can see shine just in that middle part. And that's telling me that it needs that little bit more of cooking time, but it's looking good and it's smelling amazing. So I'm going to pop it straight back in the oven. And hopefully show you again in another 5 minutes.
All righty. Well, that was really good timing because I've just grabbed my potatoes. Oh my goodness. I just want to say they're actually still sizzling. If I shut up for a minute, you might hear that. Can you see it sizzling? They smell incredible. And, I often laugh with these things because we've all had dinner. But I bet you half of this potato bake is gone tonight, and I'll have to do another one to go with the casserole tomorrow night. So this is one of those incredibly easy, tasty dishes. It looks a bit fancy. If you're having people over for dinner and you put that on the table, I probably think you've gone through a lot of work. And if you want to play with that, you could use sweet potato. You could do a combination. There's actually a lovely recipe that's come to Cookie Do recently with the cutter, which is called a vegetable bake, and it's zucchini and carrot and potatoes. So you can really kind of play with those things. I always love adding colour to what I'm cooking. So I would definitely recommend this dish. And one of the great things about doing Zoom demos is it means tomorrow night's dinner is now sorted. Tonight was a little bit busier, but tomorrow's me is going to be really grateful to today's me for having dinner cooked and ready to go. So thank you for joining us tonight. We will go back with Irene. If you give me a wave and your pride's ready, but I could see, and I hope everyone could see, because tips like that about that shiny on the top, there's things, each time I do these classes, I learn from you guys. And Irene is an incredible baker and does some really beautiful cakes. And in fact, last year we had a competition in Australia and New Zealand with 2,500 consultants about who could create an amazing recipe. And Irene created this incredible cake and won the competition. And we had professional chefs and all sorts of people with a lot of accolades behind their name, but Irene's her creativity and knowledge in that area is fantastic. So if you do want any tips around that, reach out to her, because as a team we all have our own skill set and we're all in our own business, but we're not on our own. And that's one of the things we love about being consultants, is that we work independently, but we work together and we really support each other. So if you are interested in, we talked about the cost of living and inflation. If you're looking for a side hustle or to add some income to, more hours or more income, please reach out to us, because we'd love to give you some information around that. You choose your own hours and you do as much or as little as you're interested in doing. Some people join us because they just love our community, and others join us and they're what we call our career consultants, and that's really, that's their income, and they're really focused on Thermomixing every day as far as the income goes. And some of us are here as as hobbyists, and that's actually how I started 10 years ago. And then as my kids were little and as they've got older, I've had more time. So now I'm a team leader. I've got 25 amazing people in my team, so I'm feeling very, very privileged to work with all of them. And you know what I love? My daughter's just walked in. Here I am doing my thing, and she's pointing at the potato bake, wanting to know if she can eat it in this instant. There you go. That's the kind of conditions I'm working under here. How many businessmen are sitting in their office and have their kids come in and ask for something when they're in the middle of talking to their customers? None. But that's the beauty of it, because this is real life, real families. This is how it works. This is how we roll. So, Irene, is your pie ready to show everybody?
Almost. I'm just going to show, if you just change screens for a sec. Guys, there is a video. If you go to our website, that's the cake that took out the title. So really proud. It was 10 hours. Mandy was with me. It was 10 hours of filming for 4 minutes of video. Absolutely exhausting. But we learned a lot about, I guess, all that behind the scenes stuff, which was, I'm never doing it again. But we never say never. You never know what's around the corner. But my pie is ready. So I'm really happy with this. As I said, this first batch of you can see that puff just around the side there. So I don't think this pastry was as good as the second batch I made, and that's because it was still too hot. So make sure you give your butter some time in the freezer, give your even the flour in the freezer, and make sure the bowl's cold. So even if you're putting the bowl in the fridge, or even at the moment popping it outside, a bit like Mandy said, it's so cold at the moment that you can get away with putting things outside. So I think she's a little bit too hot to slice, but I'll take some photos and we can share it with you guys a little bit later.
People in the chat saying they want to eat the pie, but that's a really great tip. Would never have occurred to me to put flour in the freezer. So, but I know that's one of the things they say with pastries, it needs to be cold. So that makes.
Well, I
it makes
actually know a lot of
perfect sense.
people that actually store, if you've got the room in your freezer, that actually store their flour in the freezer. It's one of those ingredients that you can get weevils in and essentially have to throw it out. So storing it in the freezer stops all of that from happening, and also keeps it at a continual temperature so that you've got flour that you can use probably potentially past its use by date. So yeah, it smells great though. Can't
There
wait
you
to
go. It looks actually, I think my potatoes would go quite well with your pie too.
maybe. I'm
Wonderful. Thank
not
you
sure
so
if
much.
it might be a bit, I don't know whether we can hear this. You can hear can you hear the crunch?
Yum.
Yeah, it's really, really crispy. See how we go. I'm going to try and get a piece out. Might be a bit-
There's a
We do love
question on
fun.
cream.
Taste test, don't we?
Question in the chat box about cream. What brand do you all use?
cream.
Cream.
Oh, Bulla,
Mhm.
always Australian. Okay, yeah, Bulla. Bulla's from here, from Victoria, so I always support.
Honestly, I went to Aldi, so I've got Farmdale tonight.
I like supporting Australian brands.
I'm pretty sure Aldi fresh produce is Australian.
You know, it's probably made in the same factory.
I think I read somewhere once that all
Do
the, so
that.
tin things might vary, but the fresh
That's
produce I'm sure is all
Yeah.
Australian.
I'll get a
My eyes aren't good enough to read the label at the moment. But if anybody, oh no, it does. There's a little Australia thing there. Yeah. So yeah, I've got Aldi. But if you're doing butter and things, we love to use pure cream, which you get in a little carton. Having said that, if I ever get to a situation where I'm just going to share the spotlight with you, Irene. Actually, where's Mandy? Let's all share the spotlight. If I ever get to a point where I've got half a thing of cream and I know I'm not going to use it, you can turn that into butter. So this is where we talk about the Thermomix being a no waste thing. So I don't buy butter. We go through way too much of it. Sorry, I don't make butter because we go through far too much of it. For me, I'd be making it every day. But I don't like waste. So if I buy cream and then I'm not going to use it, I can turn it into butter. And then with that butter, I'll have the buttermilk and the butter and make a banana bread or scones or something like that. So
guys, I've sliced out a piece so you can see that it's come out. It's actually ready to slice and serve straight away. So yeah, no waiting.
There might be a knock on the door soon.
Sorry?
There might be a knock on the door soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit messy on the side here, trying to get that. It's always hard with that first piece you get out, but
yeah.
The pastry is beautiful. So give it a go. Let me taste it so I can
the live taste.
do the live test. We love doing the live test. Just don't want to
Don't burn your mouth. That's the only risk with the live test.
Yeah. And this is dinner at 9 o'clock. It tastes really nice. My only tip would be, I think it needs a bit more, probably a bit more spice. So not salt. What I mean by that is we steamed the mushrooms. So maybe saute them instead. So there's a saute recipe for mushrooms on the TM6. Try that instead and add some alternate spices. I could easily add cumin into this. And maybe some chili. I like chili, so I probably should have put in some Tabasco. But I'm going to add a little bit of chili on the side. But it actually still tastes pretty good. So like we said, every recipe, you're going to try it the first time and then tweak it so that it's more to your liking. But this isn't going to go to waste.
I wouldn't have thought so. I would not have thought so. All right, Mandy, have you got anything to add or share?
No, it's that I've been eating canele on the side.
Oh, beautiful. All right.
But I have tasted them all before.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for presenting it to.
Pleasure. It's fun. Always.
I'm going to goodbye. Good night, Irene, and good night, Mandy. And I just thought I would do the same and just bring my camera down a little bit here. Now, usually, as I said, I usually have this with mashed potato, but you can see I just put the carrot in just to add a nice little bit of colour there. So there you go. That'll be my second dinner for tonight. And
what sort of size were your bits of chicken when you went in? And has it broken up at all, or has it all stayed intact?
I love about it. It actually has broken up the chicken a little bit. So that's why you don't have to over prepare it. I think sometimes a lot of the chicken fry recipes actually don't say to cut it up, but I think because we're used to doing that with the saucepan, we cut it up and then people will say, oh, my chicken was too shredded. So now I've got these sort of lovely sized pieces of chicken.
Beautiful.
So it actually in that hour and a half, but it's not at all shredded. It's now sort of that sort of bite size. Some of them are a bit bigger, but mostly that it's in that sort of shape or size there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we've gone a little bit over, so I hope you're still awake and I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you feel really inspired. I did see my friend Effie, who I've only met recently, in the chat just say that none of these dishes she would have been on her radar, but now that she's seen us make them, she's going to make them. So that's why we do this. We want to really get you getting the most out of it and be trying new things and wowing yourself all the time, because we sometimes go, oh, we do something like the garlic and go, oh yeah, I just do that all the time, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal, because before I had to go muck around. Now I don't have to muck around. 3 seconds, done. So if you would like to have an in-home demo, please reach out to us. We love cooking with you and your friends, and we love having all this amazing food to share with you rather than just sitting on our own in our kitchens. And if you're looking to purchase before the price rise, it does happen on the 3rd of July. So please reach out to your consultant to take advantage of that offer. All right, I think I've talked enough. I think I've shared everything. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to join us and be part of our team, please stay on. I'm going to stop recording now, but please stay on. And I can organise to speak to you at another time and give you all that information. Good night. Happy cooking, everybody.
Bye, everyone.